All right, so now it's time to build the parts. We're in the end game, so we just got to make the parts that actually go to route, bend scribes and all that, get all the holes laid out properly, clip the pieces, and then after that, it's just make pages and DXF. So I basically like call that the administrative side. Anyway, so now it's time to utilize these magenta wireframes that Andrew's like, why do we have to do that? Well, this is why. So this shows you the actual part layout. So we'll be using that and the rectangles. That will help actually make the through piece. Now, the rectangles and the magentas are the like overall empirical size of the sign. So if the sign is, supposed to be 27 inches, you can see that the jiggy just shows you 27 inches. But the nuggets are actually how you build the sign. So the nuggets tell you how to adjust the jiggy, because there's no way that this can be 27 and this can be 16 and a half at the same time, because the seam, I call it, somebody has to win, this guy, and somebody has to lose. So because you bonk against that. Now, there are ways to bevel if you wanted to, but we don't have time to bevel this corner to make, so otherwise these guys would just bonk against each other. But you have a 090 aluminum size thing right here. So the corner would be a weird clipped corner. It would be silly. So if you want it to actually be done, and this seam will be bondoed. So if you want it to look like an actual box all clean, you need to deal with that seam. So that's what the nuggets help you do. So the magenta says this is the overall size, and I'm giving you that info. But the nuggets are like, well, I'm going to tell you how to trim it. And then from there, you use the magenta jiggies to sort of reference and make sure everything is looking kosher, because then you can visually tell that things are lining up, literally. All right, so let's do it. So now there's the old school way to do it is if you look on Mr. Goodbar, like pretty much right in the middle, I have make TS. TS means through shape. That is the name of everything that gets routed all the way through. So technically this hole is a through shape. This whole thing will be a through shape because I want him to go, the router guy, you know, Jose, you want him to go all the way through and cut it out. So everything that's marked TS means I want it completely cut through. No half step in, no island fills, no hogging down, no reference kisses, anything like that. So to make a through shape, once you click it, it also is named through shape down here so we can find it later. Plus for aluminum, it defaults to aluminum. Now, if it was acrylic, I would want it ice blue. If it's white aluminum, I make it yellow so I can tell it's filled, but anyway, or if it's some kind of weird thing, I'll make it another color. But this thing defaults to making it a through shape, making it 10% black, which is aluminum. Now, it also creates its own shape. So you can see that it leaves the rectangle. And when you use make through shape, it sends everything to the back immediately just to get it out of the way. Because the through shape, you want it to be at the bottom so it's not covering up jiggies and things like that, because you're going to see we want to see all this. So if it just created this and left it at the top, that's kind of inconvenient. So it automatically sends it to the back for you. So we can just start over. Okay, so make through shape. And then you can go ahead and hit node. Again, snap to is your friend. Click, click, click. And then you would hit this and you would hit weld right here. I have it on Mr. Goodbar. There you go. So now we have this looking shape, right? But that's not what we have here. So this is where the jiggies help you. And now you can just get rid of that node and that node, this node and this node. And then now, so here's the thing. So now this is made empirically to the size that Corel says that should be, but we need to trim it because these, you can see right away, these nuggets are the losers. Losers. And this guy's nuggets are going to be the winners because they go all the way. So we need to bring this back. So now we can just grab node tool, grab all 4 of these nodes, and then just bring it back to bonk, make sure you grab the node of that nugget. And then that now is trimmed back the 09 we need to be. So that way when these made up, so when we bend and fold this, we will be there. So that's our actual piece. So you can see where the rectangle and the jiggies are technically wrong, but it's the actual size of the sign. And then we'll go like that. And then we adjust back and we click and we just get that nice Lego click. Okay. So now you can do the bend scribes and move everything, but let's just take it one by one here. So we got that. So we're just making through shapes. Now, what you can do is ungroup everything, and then Magic Box Machine, as long as you used the extruder buttons here, if you use the top, bottom, left, and right, this center rectangle should be named center rectangle. See right there, it says center rectangle. The problem with doing it old school, like I showed you how to do it by hand over here, is you would need to name that center rectangle to use this. So what this button is doing is it's going to be looking for a jiggy, a center rectangle, and another jiggy. So if those three things don't exist by name, you can't use this button. But if you select this, it should, if you hit fill it up, it does exactly what we just did based off knowing where those nodes are. And then you take it from there, because there's too many decisions to be made at that point. So I get it to there, but whether or not you trim or you do all those things, that's a whole other mountain of logic that I could have it figure out, but no, you can use AI. No. I'm just saying though, it's a lot of logic gates, and then there's conditions, because I should remember we made that weird rock piece, and those have really weird, you have to really get custom with the nuggets, here when you have those rock pieces, because this is when it's a 90, you have 090 here and 090 there. But when you're dealing with the rock pieces, sometimes this guy's way over here and it's very strange. So even though the jiggy is all the way over here, you have to shave an incredible amount because of the weird angle. So in order to come up with all types of variations of logic gates I'd have to come up with, it's just easier to get to this point and then just use your human fingers to figure it out. Okay, anyway, so that's how you can do that. So these two pieces are essentially ready. Now let's do this fun guy. So same thing. Now this one, you'll probably get a weird layout over here, because again, it's kind of looking for this node, this node, this node, if we use this button. So I would probably, let's just keep it simple. We're going to do make through shape, and then let's just do it the old school way to make sure, because over here it's going to be weird. And then we're just going to weld it. There we go. Okay, so now this is where we're going to learn how to do, when this has to tuck into this. So right here, this tucks into this guy. So it has to fit inside of like this channel here. So we got to make sure that we cut it so it goes inside there. So what I do for that, and when it's 09, is just an eighth. So if you grab this, again, control, nudge, 1, 2, keep it at 16th. You live and die by 16th. So there you go. So that's enough clearance. So now this will clearance into and bonk against. See, bonk. So that's our clearance point. So we just made that. And again, because we're on track, you can go here and you can go here and you can make sure that you're all lined up and everything's looking good. Now we don't need that. This is from the other guy. We can ungroup all this. There we go. So we don't need these because that's for the other, that's on the other guy. All right. And then we can go ahead, because this guy is the quote unquote loser. We can get rid of those nodes, grab all 4 nodes, and then bonk. And there we go. Save. And again, we can come back through and handle those guys. So let's go ahead and do fill it up. And then let's go ahead and do fill it up. Let's see what it does for this one. Does it get it? No. Yeah, because these guys are weird. These are skinny boys. So I'm gonna have to, we'll have to do that one. Because basically, if it's not gonna work, yeah. If it's not gonna work, it just won't look right. I'm gonna try this and see, because See, you get these, something like that happens because it's like, yeah, because the node count is weird. It's supposed to be the nodes are 1, 2, 3, 4. Anyway, so we'll have to do that one by hand. But these guys here, this should handle it. Yep. And then this guy here should handle it. Yeah. Yep, because it should be that, you know, the cross notch or whatever, if everything's working okay. This guy here, this one doesn't quite work that great. So what I do is I grab this one, or well, I do this, make through shape, and then I grab this one and I grab this one and I hit bam, and it makes a rectangle around that, and then I just weld that. There you go. And then we're gonna go ahead and just leave that because this is just a marker, but these are gonna be the same. So let's just make this once. This cat though could do filler up, yeah. Yep, that worked. And then same thing here. This should be filler up. Yep. All right. Save. So we got to do this one by hand because it's a weirdo. How about this guy? Does this guy do it? No. A little too weird. We can get rid of those guidelines there. So we're going to do make through shape, and then I'm going to grab that corner there, and I'm just going to go out and hit that node, and then pick and weld. There we go. Same thing, make through shape. And then probably just do 2 stages. We'll do this guy here, that node to skinny, that's the skinny boy. Weld, right? Yeah. And then we could theoretically drag nodes, but let's just see if we can get it to grab properly this way. Click and weld. There we go. So let's make sure this didn't act weird. So I like to just kind of scooch it, see what's up. There you go. Looking good. Weld or save. All right, so now we can go through and start adjusting pieces, getting them all dialed in. And if we're going to make our forever shapes, we might as well get that cracking. So this is where the shrink or you move it yourself comes in, because now we also need to start adding the tags, these things, to help keep these things straight. So we're going to grab one and we're going to turn it 90. And then this is whole nother jiggy system, right? It's just like the one on the bottom there, just like these, except these are these little snouts. But when you bend this, that keeps this rail straight and it keeps it nice and solid all the way around. Otherwise, sometimes when you go to weld this could bow a little bit and then you got a lot of bondoing to do, or it could actually bow up and then it will be poking above here a little bit, kind of looking bad. Or like I say, if it bows down and it kind of comes down, then you have a cavity right here where this guy's up, but this guy kind of bent down when it got welded. There's a lot of bondoing there and it just looks cruddy. So in order to keep this just as straight as the rest of it, we put these little ears on there. But the bend scribe has to be not here, but it has to be here at this edge. So you need to shrink now. You need to adjust the actual center rectangle. Most of the time, if it's just going to be 2 bend scribes, you leave the center rectangle. Who cares? You don't need to adjust this. But when you're going to go ahead and put the ears on the ends, you can see the bend scribe is going to be in the wrong spot. So you have to adjust. So that's why on Mr. Goodbar, the default is the shrinking is at 09. And so this is the direction you want it to shrink. So you see this button will do 2. So we want it on both sides. Bam, there you go. Now we've shrunk to 09. Now our center rectangle is adjusted and you can see where it's basically acting just like these jiggies. So it's like welcome, literally like welcome to the table. Like have a seat, pull up a seat right here, watch. There you go. Now, again, there's no magic button for this. I just go ahead and go like that, hit those nodes, and then I just hit weld. And then, but the other benefit of keeping this an inch tall is that now my nudge is an inch. Bonk, bonk. See, look at that. It all works out. So there you go. Save. And then now you can bring Mr. Center Rectangle to the very top, make sure he's there. And then that's where you're going to throw your bend scribes on there. However, there's no right or wrong to this, but I like to make sure I scooch all of the cleco holes first so I don't accidentally select a bend scribe line and scooch that. So now control nudge is a 16th. That's why we have these guidelines. Now I can visually see that I'm shifted. This is where it's going to end up, and this is where it should be in the empirical piece. Let's see, what piece are we using? Yeah, so over here, this is a ½ inch down, but because it's going to shift, right? Clamp pieces shift how much, class? So that's why we shift, but this line here lets me have a visual representation that to make sure that everything is shifted away as it should be. And then I'm going to grab the rectangle, and then we're back to Magic Machine. It does everything you need. If you hit all, it's on all sides of a scribe. So you have scribe line, right? You have 5/32, 1/4 inch bit, 1/8 inch bit. Hardly ever use these. I made this, but no, 5/32 for everything. Like again, if these were physical buttons, they'd be worn out. There'd be nothing on them. They'd be greasy. They'd be completely jacked up because all I do is push these buttons 24 hours a day. But anyway, so if you hit all, there you go. So now you got bend scribes set properly offset from where they're supposed to be. So this is going to be the on center of that bit. And then that's the edge there, right? But you have to make sure when you clamp this guy is going to stop early, and there's going to be a chunk of metal that's not going to allow this to bend properly. So you want these guys to poke over. You want the bit to kind of cruise along and go past. That way that trench we make goes all the way out. If you stop early here, there's a chance the trench stops early, and then it will actually bind when it's time to bend. So if the line doesn't stick over, that's what these are for. And this is going to add a 3/8 on both sides, and it's just going to grow the line, and that's perfect. So that's what you want to do, is you want to hit that and you want to hit that. Again, I could make logic where it's like, well, if it's the short side or whatever, but there's too many decisions to be made that if you just rely on the push of a button, it could be wrong and you move on. So I like some of these things to be decisions that, again, human meat and skin bags actually make those decisions and not rely on, I push the button and it's supposed to work. So anyway, now this piece, other than, let's go ahead and throw just some info for them. Let's throw a T for top. That's over here on Quick Draw on your launch pad. So if you hit T and it's already named and everything, and that's going to be a reference kiss. So that they'll be able to see that that's top. Now, granted, when they put all the pieces in a pile, some are narrower than others, so they should be able to figure it out. But again, sometimes these guys are busy. Sometimes there's a lot going on. Sometimes they might be having a bad day at home. You never know. So just dumping it on them, going, hey, you should know how this goes. Just give them some info. All right, so now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to shrink. We're going to bring that in, and then we can just go ahead and grab this cat. Now we don't need the line, but we can grab this cat because it's the same, and then bonk, and then bonk. Now if you're over there screaming, hey, that's also the same through shape. Technically, yeah. So you can grab that through shape. Boom, right? And then we can do that, and then we're going to add 3/8 to that. We're going to add 3/8 to that. Ungroup. Again, you saw that I didn't shift first. It doesn't matter. Just as long as you make sure that, now I already shifted that. See, I don't need to do those twice. That helps me to know. So, but just make sure that when you go like this, you don't accidentally, or like this guy, you don't accidentally grab that shift line or that scribe line. And that's all. Just make sure. And now this is where we use these guys to make sure that we line up how we want to mount. And we chose this like layout here. So now this is where we can use this thing where we go and we come up here. Now we have to decide, this is where knowing which way the face is. So this is face this way, but this guy is technically kind of like this, right? Because this is the front. So we want to make sure that everything, because we have to make sure it's justified properly. So I'm going to turn this 270 because the face juts out. So now I'm going to take this guy here and we're going to align this up to here. There you go. See, I have this view, And so now I can take this, duplicate, and I can actually just use it to line up. I might actually make sure it's grouped, right? And then now I can just use that to line up where these are. There we go. So, and then we can double check if it's on track. We can just throw it on the center, do a spot check on center there and like on center there. And then that should correspond to boom and boom. See, so that checks. So we're on track. Everything's looking good. But now these guys are going to need, it would be helpful if you give them a this way, this side towards enemy kind of thing. And there you go. So that's the face out. This guy can actually probably be flipped, but sometimes it is helpful just to, if you're calling it out, keep calling it out. That way it's just easy. Because then sometimes it's like, well, did they forget to put it? Is there a face on this one? Looking at it, they'll be like, sure, it looks symmetrical. You know, these holes look the same. But sometimes if you're going to label one part of it, go ahead and label all the sides, because that way it's just clear. It's just easier that way. One less thing to actually, you know, have a problem with. And I'm just going to tuck that even closer to make sure that it's kind of clear that that's this family. And then that should be it. Now I'm just kind of double checking. Everything's scooched. Everything's good. We can actually, now we can leave those. Just leave this as record. You'll be cleaning all this up later. So once we go to make the files. So just leave that. So save. All right. So this fun piece. Now, again, we're back to knowing which way is the face. So if this is the bottom of this and the face is pushing this way, then we can grab this piece. But now we know it's flipped because this guy has to go under this guy. So we're going to, again, grab a guideline, make sure we're on that. And then make sure we're on that. There we go. So now if we know that this is face, then I'm going to go ahead and make sure that we know that's face. So that means that really this is the only side we have to worry about. We can actually ditch these just to save route time. And now we can also ditch these cats because we're just making the big holes, right? And then what we're going to do, though, is we're going to shove these in a 16th. We don't have to worry about making a guide or anything, but because this is going to grow a 16th, it's going to re-encroach back down into where we were. So I'm going to go ahead and shift everything a 16th now. And then, just for ha-has, anything that goes past the node there means the bit has to come back around and create kind of a sharp boy. So I'm going to hit bam, and then I'm going to just, which makes the size of the circle, and then I'm going to group that. This guy is actually just it's less than 90, so it's what do you call it, obtuse or acute, either one. But you can see that one, the nodes are less. Now I already have this guy grouped, so I already made one, so I can come over here and just actually thank you for your service there. This guy's definitely submarine. He's definitely below level. So that way the bit comes in and comes straight, goes back around. And then these guys are definitely below. Okay, so there you go. So now we already moved forward a 16th. Now we can take all these cats and we can just hit trim. And there we go. And so now we've clearanced this piece for those studs. And then just keep going. We already moved this cat back, looks like. Did we? Yeah. So we already got that guy moved back. We already got that guy moved. So let's go ahead and move these while we're here. But make sure you don't grab the scribe line or the actual inline either. Okay. And then we do need a little tag, a little ear homie. So we're going to grab that. We're going to flip it. But this guy we're going to shrink just on this side. We don't need to shrink the other side. So I got this arrow. Which way do you want it to shrink? I want it to shrink this way. So you hit that arrow. And then we're going to click Lego style. There you go. Send that to the back. Make sure this rectangle's to the front, right? And now we can make this homie. Now you can try to weld it, but sometimes it doesn't weld properly because if it's mathematically a billionth off, it doesn't close the shape. So you can try it though, but you also want to make sure you leave one. So you got to duplicate it if you're going to weld it. So you got to make sure you got two. I'm going to try to weld it. Okay, it did. So as long as it's closed, but sometimes there's a line here and there's another node and it's just a mess. So sometimes it's easier to do the old school way of, like we're talking about, just doing that and welding it. But that worked out. Okay, now I want to go ahead and do that. And then we're going to do that. And then we're going to do, we don't need all sides because we don't need a, oh no, we do. Yeah, because we're going to have an ear on this side too. And yes, it's always sirens when I hit record. So yeah, there's going to be an ear here with a hole, and then that matches up to here. So there you go. So that part is there. Can we do it again? Can we luck out? Can we do a weld, duplicate weld? Yep, cool, worked out. Now, yes, we do want on all sides. Boom. Okay, so that definitely goes past the gray part, right? That goes past, but this guy is just a little shy. So we're gonna hit that, good to go. This piece is looking good. Now we just need to line these up. So I'm gonna grab these, let's group so they stay together. And then duplicate and then line up. There we go. So that lines up because that's in the center of that. So that makes sense. And then this guy's justified. So this should boom. So that's gonna, yeah, and that we have that just slightly off there. So let's see. Yeah, just because I was a little bit on my on track. There we go. So yeah, everything lines up. That's perfectly on the back side. So that's where that lives. Good to go. Double check. Everything's on track. So got that. Now we're going to do a face forward on this just to make sure. And we'll just flip that. And there we go. Face forward. Working our way through. Okay, this guy here was a little custom dude. Very, very small. Very weird little guy here. Poor girl. It's just a weird little piece. So we're just going to make him by hand. He loses here. These guys lose. So we're just going to get rid of those. And then send it back to the back. And then we're going to grab those nodes. Bonk. And then we're going to grab these nodes. Now, oops, no, I didn't grab all the nodes. I got to grab all the nodes. There we go. Like that. Now, I need to decide. I'm going to scooch 16th. Do I want ears on this one? Because it's so small. Do I want to do this? Let's see. Let's just see what we got. Can I do it? That's another question. Yeah, why not? I'm not the guy bending. Ha 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 ha. So I'm going to shrink this 09. Probably don't need that though, because this guy's just going to tuck in. We'll put wings on both sides. And we will hope that, let's hope that it works. I'm going to duplicate both, and then I'm going to weld, and then we'll see. Yay, it worked. And then we're going to do all sides. That's okay, because these guys are, this guy is, you're going to bend those first. That's fine. You know what? Just to be safe. So you can select both of them and hit add. There we go. All right, there's a little guy. Looks like a little glider or something. All right. Okay, so now we're getting finally to the ones that win. So this guy, the verticals, are the ones that go long. So far we've been doing all the short guys that need to be sent back a little bit from the magenta, right? And then also, you know, pushed back an entire 09 right there. That's the 09. So now we've got these guys. These guys are king. So the way to do that is you don't get rid of those yet. what you do is you push this out an inch because your nudge is an inch, right? And then you grab these two, leave these alone, and this is why we're using the magentas. Then you click it where it's supposed to be. Now, technically, you're like, okay, why don't you leave it like that? Because this guy wins. So how come, Now, for whatever reason, because the fact that this grows a 16th, when you clamp it, you need to bring this back a 16th. So this is back in 09 because it literally has to fit in 09. But this needs to come back a 16th because it grows a 16th. So technically it's still in charge. It's still the long, like it's just naturally that shape, but we do need to bring it back a 16th. Whoops. So you just grab that. And again, nudge is a 16th. So there you go. Control. And then bring this back that inch. There you go. So now that's why this part is the actual piece. And yes, that is the nubbin that you see that wins. That's the part there. That's the cross piece. But in order for it to fit properly, we have to attenuate, whatever you call it, a 16th. So this is a 16th back, but it has the part that wins. So that's the actual edge of the sign that people see. So you have to create that, but you can't just leave it where that's parts there, because once you bend that, it's going to be on top of this, and then you have to grind it and make it fit. So this gets notched to 16th, but the guy who loses goes a full 09 back. And that fits. Whatever the mechanics are, it fits. And that's almost matched up perfectly. That's after a lot of R&D. So we got to do the same thing down here. You take that, just move it over. It can be 2 inches, whatever your nudge is. It's fine. Just get it out of the way. And then this guy, clunk, just these two. Then grab all four nodes. Scooch a 16th, not an 09. And then you just move these back, whatever your nudge was. And there you go. You're set. Now, these guys do not have any of these wings. So we will go ahead and do only 2 bend scribes. And then we go ahead and make our Clecos scooch, right? And then technically, we still need to do these parts. But technically, this part's like ready. However, I do like to put the reference hole for this, so you can Cleco it together if you choose, but it doesn't need to shift because this is where it actually ends up. So you go like that, and you can see where this is where that piece bonks. And then we've shifted this because that's going to end up there. But there's no shifting, so this is where that ends up. And again, that's the reason for the jiggies, for the magentas, because they allow you to make these sort of skeletonized versions of where everything's going to be. And then we're going to do the same thing we did here, where we grab this and then we choose which way's front, which I believe, right? This is this one here. That's this one. So that's front. So we keep this justified that way. And then again, you don't want to make sure you don't get a false one off of the bend scribe. You want to make sure you're on the nugget, and then you make sure you're on that. So that's back there. Double check there. Yep. So that's that. So again, take this, we'll group it, and then just start aligning it with its buddies. There you go. Oh, conflict. Let's see, which piece is that? That's this piece. That's this piece here. And then we know that's where that lines up. So, yeah. See, real-time deconflicting. So, yeah, we can either just bring this down, which I might do, or just hit it with the horns. Is it the face one? Right? Yeah, it's the face one. Because that one's way over here. That one's clear. Right, that's over here. So let's just take it off with how about a 1 inch? So I'm not even worried about being, because it's right on the edge of that. So you know what? Yeah, since it's right on the edge, just do a 3/8. That's plenty. There we go. Trim. There we go. So we deconflicted that. Otherwise, the homies would be like, oh, it's in the way. You can hear the homies in the back. Like that. Because they're like, oh. And then we know that there's a face. So we're going to go 90 and face this way. That's the front. Cool, cool. So now I think we're ready. We saw some conflict there, so we handled it before it even causes a problem, hopefully. Now, there's probably a good chance that this is going to happen over here. No, there's no holes on the side. Cool, cool, cool. So we're good to go. Now, here's where that trick comes in. So this is all the same as other than these holes, but the through shape's the same. So I know we made a through shape, but we can ditch that and we can go ahead and grab this one because it's the same. Now, sometimes they aren't. Sometimes we want this to be long, so this side is the loser side, and this side's the winner side. So sometimes you can't get away with that. But if both sides are the same box, everything's the same, and this is the winner, then you can usually get away with grabbing that through shape that you've already, lovingly handcrafted, and then do that. And then we do want these guys for record. And then again, send this down here. Click. Okay. Now you do have to shift. Make sure we shift. Double check that shift. We're good to go. And then we do need some scribe lines. There you go. Save. And again, just to maybe not have ambiguity, we'll just, doesn't really matter, but just to, because this is maybe 15, 20 seconds of routing. Because if it's already doing all of this, then it's travel time to go over here and go, it's negligible. Alrighty, so that's the idea. So that's all the parts for the top box, all laid out, ready to go, ready to send, and this part here too. So we're starting to get in on that. So you can kind of see how it goes. I'm going to just take a break real quick, and we'll get back to it.